Hello and welcome to the show as we talk about digital technology, what agents are doing with digital. Interesting that we're seeing a lot more interaction online, agents becoming a lot braver, but also I'm finding that consumers are becoming a lot braver too. You've only got to look at the number of consumers who are willing to buy property online, bid online. I'm talking now to Gavin Croft, who is a well-known auctioneer of Australia, New Zealand, overseas. He joins me to talk about this concept. Gavin, thanks very much for your time.
Hi Kevin, how are you?
Fantastic. We've got you've just flown in from New Zealand. We've got you in your Sydney apartment there, so thank you for spending some time with us.
That's okay. Apologies for bags under the eyes, mate.
No, you're, mate, perfectly understandable. And having just come in, as I said, from New Zealand, the auction culture, Australia and New Zealand, you and I talked off air about the culture in Sydney and Melbourne, how it's so ingrained into the selling process. Are you finding the same thing in New Zealand, in educated agents?
Yeah, very much. Well, particularly the inner city, the Auckland area where I predominantly operate in. Once again, that inner city Sydney and the Auckland markets, they're both very sophisticated auction cultures. And the one thing that I've certainly found interesting, I've been working over there the last probably 3.5, 4 years, but the connection and the similarities between the two are really evident. So it's been really interesting to see that I've seen buyers that I've dealt with in Sydney a year or two later have ended up bidding in Auckland. You get a little bit of crossover, but the dynamics and the energy and the way they work, they're really similar and really connected actually.
It's quite fascinating to look at the auction concept around the world, because in America and also the UK, where we have a huge audience in both of those markets, auction's very much seen as a distressed sale process. Where it's almost like a last resort. If you're going to auction, it's like a stigma on you and the property.
Yeah, well, it's funny. We had some people from the US of A in our auction rooms last night in Auckland. And they came up and, again, really intrigued and interested that at both Australia and New Zealand, this is generally a method of sale that people will utilise and do it for very good reason. But they sit there and they find it really difficult to work out. So they're quite intrigued, they're really interested by it all. And I'll tell you what, I've never had so many questions asked after the completion of the auction room last night. But it's good to see, and they're getting the hang of it slowly but surely.
Yeah, Gavin, I want to discuss with you about technology now, and this is a digital marketing show, but I want to go into the area of online bidding. We're seeing, technology's done a lot of wonderful things for us, allowing us to do shows like this through the internet, but it's also allowed us the opportunity to bring auctions into the home of people, so they don't necessarily have to be there. We saw on-site auctions, then we saw in-room auctions, and now it's very much online auctions. Are you seeing that people are becoming a lot more trusting of agents?
Good question. Whether people are coming a lot more trusting of agents, where I find is, so if we're going to talk here and we dive a little bit deeper into online, the trust for me or what I see, and I can only apply this first and foremost as a consumer, is the amount of information that the agent or agency provides online is key to the trust. And so what I mean by that is, if I want to make a decision on a property, if I need to ring an agent or I need to email an agent to find out more information, there's a blockage, and that's a pressure point for me as a buyer. If you provide the information there and then for me to make a decision, that helps build the trust. So for me, transparency and the information that you provide is first and foremost absolutely paramount. Yeah. I might share a little story about that. In Sydney, Kevin, I was the sales director or sales manager for BresicWhitney estate agents, who you may or may not know. Yes. And it was interesting. It was about 5 years ago, Kevin, that price guides in Sydney were utilised by some agencies and some weren't. But I had a look over a 12-month period, and we received, I think it was 55,000 emails into the business in a 12-month period, simply by the consumer saying, please tell us what the price guide is. So if you work out that's a lot of people just saying, give me the information. So it was interesting. The next 12 months, we tried bringing price guides into the business. We then received that next year only 4,500 emails into the business. Now, you can imagine we've just provided the information, and that's just one part of what people want. So I think if you can provide all the information they need, they'll respond accordingly.
Yeah, and it comes down to trust. Things like we're talking about price guides now, and of course there's been a lot of press about this and the honesty of the agent, lowballing, and thereby the need for some legislation from governments making it illegal to do too much lowballing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is where the professionalism of the agent, the agency, and the industry is at the forefront, because the consumers, all they want to do, they want to, I guess if I look at it, they just want to make it easy for them to buy. My observation sometimes, certainly not all the time, Kevin, is we make it difficult. We make it difficult, and we've got to try and get out of the way sometimes. So I think by identifying some of these pressure points that people are experiencing online, first and foremost, removing those pressure points, some really important elements.
Okay, let me ask you another question now, because you're dealing with a lot of very successful agents, and we're talking here about building trust. Technology, social media has given us the opportunity to have lots of really good conversations with people even before we meet them. What are you seeing with some of the better agents around the world and what they're doing with digital, how they're connecting and how they're building trust? What are they doing?
Yeah, and again, I'll come back to first and foremost providing interesting, good quality information. When you see a lot of the stories out there is not by all, but you see a lot in the industry. Look how good I am. Look what I've just sold. Yes. If you can, my observation, if you move away from that and provide some real value, provide something that's interesting and really relevant. And we spoke again offline, some of the topics that have really grabbed your listeners recently. And again, it's trying to find and get in touch with what the consumer wants. And that is, I think, first and foremost for any real estate agent, is try not think like a real estate agent, but think about the consumer, or think what a consumer wants. And if you come from that point, then whatever you do through the digital platforms, you probably get a lot more cut through.
Absolutely. Yeah, great advice. Mate, thank you very much for joining us, Gavin. Gavin Croft is a very talented auctioneer, great understanding about the property market. I really appreciate your time, mate. We're going to catch up again really soon. Gavin Croft, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Kevin.